Indeed, to introduce a former student. I've known Max for now a day or two, and well beyond that. As I enjoyed seeing many of you greet Max as you came in the room, it's apparent that many of you met him over the years in his community as well. Max Bales is from Bloomington. He made the good escape to Vincennes, then further north to Purdue University. He was recalling to me, Martin, that he had you in class along the way, and he recognized Dr. Wilcox and others from his undergraduate days at Purdue. Max has worked at Virginia Tech, he's worked at Purdue, he's worked in development in the community here. He's currently the Director of Planned Giving for the Arthritis Foundation, working here in West Lafayette. He and his wife Chris are the parents of 2 girls and 1 boy, Rachel and Jacqueline. And he's headed to Chicago as soon as he's done speaking today to help his daughter move in up there. This is moving day for Rachel, who ran cross country for Purdue. And Joel is going to begin in agronomy this fall as an undergraduate at Purdue. And his other daughter is living, Jacqueline, in Denver, working. Okay. Now, it's a treat. I'd ask again, how many of you played in athletics in high school? Raise your hand. And leave those up. Any of you have sons, daughters, grandchildren that played high school sports? Keep your hands up, guys, and raise them some more. And the rest of us wanted to, but maybe couldn't do, but thank you. We've all, at least I have, kind of disagreed occasionally, sometimes vehemently, with the calls of officials. And I have to confess that's a failing on my part, okay? Although I was sure I was right and they weren't. I think it was probably the reverse, okay? But I've come to learn, and I've visited with Max a little bit up here. Raised some questions about what do you think when this happens and that happens and so on. And it seems to me that they're more in the education business than I thought. That they're instructing young athletes and reinforcing good behavior and helping them correct bad behavior and maybe going deeper than just that play. Maybe what happens to them in their entire life. How fair play and proper conduct really goes well beyond sports. So we're honored and pleased to have Max Bales with us today. And I think we called it to call or not to call, that's the question, is the general topic.
Football Rules 101.
I like your topic better, but he's going to challenge you to make the call in some cases. I'd ask you please to join me in giving a warm welcome to Max Bales. Max.
Dr. Schweitzer, Madam President, fellow agronomists, and all the rest of you. So first of all, I've been an official since 1981, and I want to promise you, those of you that had me in class, I am a better official on my worst day as an official than I was on my best day as an agronomist or an economist, Dr. Pond. So this is a passion, it's a hobby, and it's just a lot of fun for me to do this. So, and there are enough Toastmasters here. So I only have 7.5 minutes right now. I get the red light at 7.5 minutes, and I'm good with that. So you start this as a hobby. So what we're going to do today, we're going to maybe even have an outline here. Oh, by the way, that's me. That's my college crew up there. And this kid right here surprised me on my last game. And you can't see that sign. It says, "My dad is the ref." So I hope he doesn't blow it. So my student athlete came to my last college game this past season to root for me. And then the picture with my crew was actually over in Defiance, Ohio. I left that game and got to the Purdue-Ohio State game. So I saw 3 teams from Ohio play that day, and 2 of them lost. So we're going to go through some referee basics, because I hear all of you ask questions at Downtown Gridiron Club, and they're most of the questions that when I hear coaches, I try to respond to coaches. I'll say, well, Coach, that's a great question. And when you hear that, what that actually means, Dr. Pond, is that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard anybody say. But, when I was in your class and did the same thing, you were kind enough to me to do the very same thing. So we're going to talk, I picked these topics only because I hear a lot of questions from you all about this. We're going to talk a little bit about pass interference and the holding basics, because again, that just seems to be, I was sitting in the dentist chair one day and I was holding my rule book because I had to review something from the night before, and the dentist comes up and sees the rule book and he says, well, why do you have the rule? Are you a coach? No, I'm an official. So, well, tell me, why does Michigan get away with holding? I don't know much about the game, but why does Michigan get away with holding? I turned to his hygienist, said, here is my world in a nutshell. The guy's opening statement says he doesn't know anything about what I do, but proceeds to tell me how to do it. So, the other big one, and it's huge right now in football at all levels, is targeting. And we're going to talk a little bit like that. We're going to conclude, hopefully if we get time, because I can be a little long in the tooth for those of you that know me, maybe put a little video up and then have some time for some questions. And I know that I'm going to try and get that because I know you guys will have a lot of questions. So here we're going to start with the quiz. So let's just take the first one. So literally take a minute. I'll shut up, I promise, and let's answer the question.
Can you read it?
I'll read it to you. So B34 recovers Team A's fumble and returns the ball for 20 yards before being tackled by A73 who twists B34's face mask. During the run, B29 clips B34 during the run. So B29 is guilty of clipping. All right, so who's got the ball now? Where are we going with the ball, and what's the down and distance, and what's the clock status?
Was that first base or was that second base?
That's first base, and who's on first? So, anybody know the answer?
You gotta go back.
Exactly. Thank you, Jerry. I appreciate that. So this is a test question right off the college football exam that we have to take every year. So, and again, I want you to, I'm so thrilled it's halfway through the football season already. What that means, of course, is I've been doing rule study and working with both my high school and my college guys since January. On rule study, we get together once a month, and I try to spend one of the habits, the atomic habits that I'm trying to put in place a little bit, about 15 minutes a day in either this, which is the mechanics manual, or this is the rule book. And I know, at least 2 or 3 of you are thinking, holy crap, he can read a textbook? I mean, that's awesome. So that's a typical question. Basics, before I even step on the field, give you some idea. My NCAA dues are $130. My NAIA dues are another $80. IHSAA is $105. National Associated Sports Officials $110, and then the Indiana Football Official Association $70. At any given time, I've got about $300 worth of equipment and uniform on. And then, so I've got to go through, as we talked about, NCAA rule study, testing, IHSAA, which is the high school rule book, and so, and then you just go, once you get into the season, a typical week is there are lower level games, and I try not to do those now since I'm working on Saturdays as much as I used to, but there are usually some, what's that? Oh, okay. Usually I'm such a quiet, shy kid that I try to, I don't want to overwhelm you either. So a typical week, I'll maybe do a JV game on a Monday, or I'll review some film, try and get the high school film ready to go for my crew to, get some plays out for us to look at. Sometime on Tuesday. Wednesday, we actually have a meeting every Wednesday during the season where we have speakers come and talk a little bit about the game as one aspect of the game. And then Thursday's middle school night, and then I leave on Friday to be at a high school varsity game, to be on site an hour and a half before kickoff, and then on Saturdays it's 4 hours before kickoff. We have to be, by rule, on the field 45 minutes before a high school game and an hour before a college game. Anytime the players are on the field warming up, doing stuff, we pretty much have to be there. So,
Why is that?
because stuff happens. These are, 16 through 22-year-old boys. Not all college students, it turns out, are 26 when they graduate. But and things happen. And so we've got to be there to make sure that, it's like parking the patrol car on the street, right? So, we get into the penalty aspect of it. This is a little philosophy. You won't find this in the rule book. You'll find it in the mechanics manual, but you won't find it in the rule book. what causes me to throw a foul or throw a flag? And so first of all, I've got to ask myself, did I see the entire play? And there's a training film that went out to the IHSAA that features me prominently on it. There was a situation where a kid came in and made a low block. I saw that, and it was the defense kid that he actually blocked the lead blocker and made the tackle. And I'm in a spot, I see the low block, I pull my flag, and I'm starting to throw it, and then the herd moves in front of me. And when it clears, the only guy laying on the ground has got the football. And so I'm thinking, I must have not seen the entire thing. And so that was a situation where I didn't, I questioned myself. And did I see the whole thing? So did I see the entire play? Was the act illegal? And that's where, going back to all that time in the rule study, going through quizzes like that, every day I take a mini quiz. Did the player gain an advantage by breaking the rule? So was that hold on the other side of the line of scrimmage and the play went clear to the other side? Yes, it was against the rule, but did he gain some sort of advantage from it? Probably not, right? So, or was safety involved? And for the guys on Division I, is it going to show up on ESPN? So yeah, they've got that's a different, they've got a little different stature than I do, but and a different standard. And at the bottom line, does the punishment fit the crime? In other words, did what the kid do? Does what the kid did fit? Whatever thing he did to make that play. Do we want to take? We're going to give somebody an advantage now. Did they really deserve what they got? So that's what I'm thinking. And I've got to do that in less than a second. I've got to make all of those decisions. And if it happened early on the play, by the way, I got to keep officiating the play, because if I'm sitting there thinking about it and then he scores a touchdown and I'm still on the 5-yard line, I'm going to get an email from the commissioner. Don't ask me how I know that. Okay.
So did you still give the penalty for the guy that held that didn't have anything to do with it?
No, I'm going to come up to him and say, don't do that. So that way he knows I saw it. And, and then sometimes that works. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So just really quickly, because, this is where it gets really, really interesting. The basics, and this is just the basics, enforcement. So I'm going to ask myself, when I go to report to the official, to the referee, the guy with the white hat. I remember I wear a hat that's black with white pinstripes, so I don't get to make any of the big decisions. No one sees me going this or anything like that. So I'm going to go to my referee, and I've got to tell him what I saw. Number 35 on the team that is wearing the dark jerseys on the defense, and I'm going to tell him what foul I had. Now I've got to tell him, and he's going to expect me to know this, what the enforcement is. So the enforcement, there's a basic spot, and the most fouls, will fall into a very simple, basic spot. If it was a pass play, a kick play, something that involved a loose ball, then we're going to go back to the previous spot. Or at least I'm going to be asking myself, why aren't we going back to the previous spot? If there was a run involved, if it was a running play or a pass play that then had a run at the end of it, and the foul occurred during the running part, we're going to go to the end of the run. So I'm going to, again, ask myself, why aren't we going to the end of the run for that? There may be an answer to that, but most of the time we're going to be going to the end of the run. Or then possibly the spot of the foul. And there's none in high school, but there are rules in college where the foul does, when the rule describes the foul, it's a spot of the foul. So if you hear a high school announcer say, well, that's at the spot of the foul. Now, that's nowhere in the high school rule book, but it can be in the college rule book. And kicks are the best way to describe, from a referee's standpoint, a kicking play is, the military term is cluster foxtrot. So I mean, they're just messes. They're just all the wacky stuff that happens in the game, and all the questions that most of us get wrong on the test involve the kicking game. Because once again, it's not as simple as, well, it was a loose ball foul, we go to the previous spot, re-kick. There are actually something, there's PSK, there's putting on at the end of the kick, all kinds of things we can do there. So kicking game is very, very complicated. I'm going to move really quickly, but because I hear a lot of questions about pass interference. In fact, every year that I ordered stuff from a specific supply house, when I was a high school official, the owner of that supply house was a guy by the name of Dick Honig, who's was a long time Big Ten official. And you'd order stuff and from him, and there was a place on the order form where you could put comments. And most people would put things like, well, make sure that you ship it to my business instead of, I would put on there, Dick, would you not let the Penn State defensive backs hang on to our receivers when you get to West Lafayette? So we all have questions about what constitutes pass interference. So think about this: whenever a pass goes in the air, that's the same thing as a jump ball in basketball. Both of those players have a right to that pass. So know that right off the bat. So when that ball's in the air, it's anybody's ball on a pass. So the restrictions for the offense, because they knew what the play was going to be, right? They were allegedly in a huddle or saw something from a coach on the sidelines. So they can't go downfield and block on what's going to be a pass play that goes beyond the line of scrimmage. So their restrictions began as soon as that ball is snapped. For the defense, it's as soon as the pass is in the air. Okay, so when I go in and report or tell the coach what happened, when I threw my flag, I reported to my referee that I had pass interference, defensive pass, a DPI is what I'm going to say. It was on number 37, and it was the pass play resulted in a 20-yard pass. They're going to decline it more than likely. Yes.
May I ask a question?
Oh, please.
Would it have been a DVI in the Saints championship game?
So
That,
the question is about the famous play in the Saints playoff game.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put it out here right now. And I absolutely love football. I don't watch a single snap of pro football during the season. I can name more pro football officials than I can pro football players. I run a youth league that plays on Sunday, and again, I've gone through my typical week. The only football I watch on Sunday is my game film. That's all I have time for. I think Lee mentioned I've even got a couple kids out there. And until this year, until about a month ago, I was still involved in going to sporting events to watch them. So I don't know anything. I'm going to plead the fifth on the. I've heard that was a bad call. So that's what others have told me. So what we're looking for is early contact. I've got to report to that coach. It was early contact, got it before there. He drove the receiver from his route. Coach, he's got the receiver still, even though it's a jump ball, you can't just keep the receiver from had the opportunity to get to that ball. An arm bar, which is, just putting, physically holding the receiver's arms, or it could be the offensive guy, the defensive guy's arms, so that he can't get to the ball. Playing through the ball, a receiver will come up, and it kind of goes into early contact, but he'll actually, make a play on the ball, but he's going through the other player, and he can't do that. Or just grab and restrict him. They call that tail piping now. And you see that a lot in practice at Purdue. Our defensive backs are very grabby, at least in practice, on that. So, and then if there's no pass on that play, if they're grabbing him, then we move it over to defensive holding. So that's pass interference. And think of any questions you might have. We're going to move right in to next. There we go. Holding. So, some of the axiom here, one of the axiom here, when you're beat, you're cheat. So as an official, we're looking for that guy that just got beat, that big offensive lineman that maybe he's not as fleet of foot as he thought he was, and the defensive guy's now beating him. That's when we're going to start to look for him to do something illegal. Again, it's an arm bar. Offensive guys have to keep their hands kind of inside the jersey. They can extend them, but they've got to be inside. So when he goes out here, even though he doesn't necessarily grab him, that's still, considered holding. Obviously, a jersey pull, the takedown is, in high school, if it didn't have anything to do with the play, I still will probably talk to the kid unless it was a personal foul. But in college, even at my level, if I see a takedown, I got to get a flag on that. Grab and restrict. So for defensive holding, this is the defensive back downfield. He and the receiver are mixing it up a little bit. The defender's grabbing him now. If the quarterback's not looking that way, again, it's nothing. Now, if I look up, I'll look up, see the jersey pull, look up, and if the quarterback's looking to that side of the field at that moment, then I've got a foul. So, and then for defensive holding in college, it's an automatic first down. And finally, the big one, maybe.
So Maxwell, I think I just heard you say that you're watching the quarterback's eyes in addition to the play that's taking place.
So my primary in every play start. There's 7 of us on a Division III, 5 of us in high school, and then 8 from Division II on up. So we've got a key. So I've got somebody that I'm in charge of at the snap, and I'm going to watch him to a certain point. It depends on what happens in the play to that point. So in that situation where I've got my receiver, comes off the line and he's being held at that point, and I've already read probably whether it was a pass play or not. I've watched the big lineman, taking a glance, watch that, defensive tackle, start backtracking, and so, okay, I've got a pass play, and plus my guys are coming down the field. So, and I watched that defensive player grab that receiver. At that point, I'm going to take a quick peek and see, was that quarterback looking that way? Was he wanting to throw that way? Or is he looking clear? He's rolled out to the other side of the field. I got nothing. So the targeting one's big because it just makes the news, and it's a play we've got to get out of the game in order to keep the game of football. This is a play, and the definition's right up there, making forcible contact, with the intention, attacking the player with the crown of the helmet. If we go, so that's basic targeting. So if you attack with the crown of the helmet, it doesn't matter who it's against, it's targeted, and it's a 15-yard penalty, and the player gets ejected. If it was in the first half, he's done for the day. If it was in the second half, he's done for the day and the first half of the next game. If it happens on the last game of the season, he either gets the penalty in the bowl game, and if he's not a senior, the first game of the next season. That's how serious we are. So that kid is gone. We take the one thing that he wants more than anything away from him from making that kind of mistake. The indicators. So now we go into a defenseless player. And this is a kid that's throwing a pass, he's catching a pass, somebody that's got something other to do, because of the play, the way the play has, that he can't defend himself. So a quarterback throwing a pass is a defenseless player. A running back that is obviously giving himself up or is on his way down is a defenseless player. We've got to give these guys a chance. So now we want to have some sort of indicator that says this is a targeting foul. Was there a launch? Did the player come up or jump, try and hit the player high? Did he crouch and then come up and hit him? Was he, leading with the helmet? Did he hit that player with his helmet, forearm, hand, fist, or elbow? On his, again, we're talking about a defenseless player now for this targeting foul. On the way down, and then lowering the crown. That's always going to do it. And you see 15 yards, ejected. And on TV games, Division I, Division, even some case in Division II they do it a little different. I don't have this in my world, but in Division I they can create a targeting foul. If there was no flag on the field, the replay officials can go back and create the foul. When they go in and review it, one that's called. So there's a flag on the field, we've got targeting, the replay officials have to find one of these. They've got to put it. One of these indicators has to be there in order for them to keep the flag. And it happens, and it happened in the Division II National Championship game. The flag was on the field, they reviewed it, the indicator wasn't there. They're going to pick the flag up, and we're going to go. It could still be a late hit, it could still be unnecessary roughness, it could still be unsporting-like conduct, but it wasn't targeting, and we don't have the ejection. Division II will actually go in, review film. If it happened in the first half, review it. Take it, take the, keep the flag on it, the player stays out in the second half, or come back out and say, hey, we missed it, he can play. So, I think. All right, so we're gonna hang on to that for a minute. I'm gonna give you one, you make the call. Oh, here you go, I forgot to put that up there. This was in so it says, you got the officials celebrating here. And the players, do you really have to act like that every time you make a good call? And the tagline is, if refs acted like players. I'm gonna, what's that? I'm good, all right. Let's go. So, the NCAA, what happened to my feed here? I need to do that on my computer.
Good call.
Can I look at your computer?
Yeah.
Here comes a cavalry.
All right. I'm gonna, if my cousin here can get the, you can't do it, all right. So we're not gonna put any plays up right now, but now we just got questions. And I know that the professor next to me had preloaded some questions, but what do you have for me? What do you want to know? Yeah.
What was the answer to that first one?
I don't know. So the defense, so the foul occurred before or after the kid? This is what I got to ask myself.
Fouls occurred after the
After the fumble, both on the offense and the defense. So what happens? We go to, if there's a foul on the team that got the ball on the turnover, we ask, did they have clean hands? In other words, did the foul occur before he recovered the fumble or after he recovered the fumble? So if it was after, which it was, the clip was on the return, he got the ball with clean hands. Even though there were 2 live ball penalties, they're not going to offset. And the reason is that the defense now has the option to decline the penalty on the offense and keep the football. They are still going to be penalized for the clip. And it was a running play, so where am I going to administer the foul, in my mind?
You're back, Max, if you need it.
Okay, well, it's just on the, so it's either going to be at the end of the run or where the clip occurred. If the clip actually occurred, we're going to hurt the running team, or the offending team the hardest. So, oh wow, we're up there. Play it, yeah.
I'm gonna neuter the sound.
All right. We get this film, we get films like this every week during the season. And this is one of the things we do in that 4-hour time period. And it's going to go ahead and hit play. So we're now the referee. You're now the referee. You're the guy with the white hat. Your only key is that quarterback. So we're only watching number 9. We don't care about what happens. We're actually still watching number 9. We didn't see what happened downfield. So now we're going to get it in slow motion. And this is kind of what you're going to do as a referee. You're going to replay that in your mind in slow motion. And right now the narrator is talking. So what do we got? Anybody got targeting on that?
No.
Was there an indicator there?
No.
All right. So that's your view. That's what the referee saw, because he's standing about right where that camera angle is. He's looking. We're going to watch that. It wasn't Penn State, was it? We'd flag them anyway, right? Yeah. You're rolling. Okay, he's talking, yeah. All right, so now, I don't know. He may have gotten up there. Now, so you see the line judge is looking downfield because he's got all kinds of stuff he's going to do. But look at this angle. Oh, yeah. So you see how difficult, you think, man, you know, the referee, and we think this too, by the way, downfield. The referee's only got one thing to do. One thing and one thing only. He doesn't even have to run. He can just stand there. He's got to make that call. And you see on that video, he didn't have the angle. So that would be a case where more than likely, and I didn't see this game and I forget what they said about it, but more than likely the replay created that. So, but that gives you an example. And by the way, I called one last year in a game that went to overtime and that had playoff consequences in the NAIA. And I threw a kid out and I saw the film and he should have stayed in. I mean, that's how quick that happens, you know. So what other questions do you have? Yeah, Jeff.
So those of us that are fans, we're so far up in the stands, we can't hear what's going on the field. So my question is, how much jawing do you let go on between teams before they say something? I don't know what something is, but you'll throw a flag for, would that be unsportsmanlike conduct?
Unsportsmanlike conduct, yeah. So the question is, well, how much do we let those kids get away with? You know, if he says something that he wouldn't necessarily say in Sunday school, and he's directed it at himself, even on Friday nights, on Friday nights I'm going to tell him to watch his mouth. You know, if he, on the other hand, has directed that particular phrase that again would not be appropriate in polite company, he's going to get a flag. In both places, on Friday and Saturday, that's his first. If he gets a second, he gets to spend some quality time in the locker room while the game's going on. So, and for coaches, Jeff, if you ever hear an official say, "Coach, do you want to repeat that?" That's a Todd Ransom phrase. If they repeat it, they've just asked for the flag. You know, for me, it's usually, "Coach," and I've got a pretty good, for those of you who've seen me out at the Little League Diamond, I have a pretty good "don't mess with me" face. And I'll look at them and I'll say, you know, sometimes I don't even have to say anything, but I've got, you know, "Coach, I've had enough." And that's usually enough. You know, at that point, they know that if they say something else, they have penalized themselves. You had a question.
Are there any restrictions on, or rules on how you use replays in the college game?
So as teams or players, questions on replay?
No, when, to make calls.
Oh, to make calls? So yes, there is an actual rule book, another rule book for the replay officials, and they can only create fouls in certain situations, and there are only a certain number of things that they can go back to and overturn based on what they saw. Now, since I work at Division III and there is no replay official, I don't really care. So I've not read that book. I've got enough stuff, and so those guys, by the way, Division I guys, Todd Ransom and those all-stars, they got to show, where I'm there 4 hours, they're mandatory there the day before. So if it's a Saturday game, they're in town Friday night. Same with the NFL guys. So, Ted.
Do you make calls on celebration at the end of a play or for taunting or that sort of thing? And what's the division there?
So there are actually things enumerated in the rule book that are taunting or celebration. You know, spinning the football is one that comes right. I can remember that one because that was the last flag that I think Earlham College will ever get, was a celebration, because two guys came up and spun the football, so we actually had 30 yards of, but yeah, so you know this kind of, you know, the throat cut, there are actually things that are, you know, enumerated in the rule book for college celebrating. High school, it's, you know, if you're celebrating with your teammates, we're going to give you a lot more leeway. If you're drawing attention to yourself, at the very least, you're going to get don't do that. Go back and celebrate with your team. If it prolongs, then yeah, it's going to be a 15-yard penalty. Yeah.
I guess it was a Colts game, I don't remember for sure, where the receiver was just annihilated before he had a chance to receive the ball, and then it was coming out of a silly call. I don't remember the details, but
I'm sorry, I've even got my
I tell you,
seniors in.
I think it was a game last year, must have been a Colts game, where it was an important game, where the receiver, just about to receive the ball, was just annihilated, and wasn't even called anything consequence at all.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty important play for the game, put the Colts out of the playoffs.
It's kind of, so he's asking about contact, a receiver getting annihilated on a play, and that's applicable to both, every game I do. There's some things that look like pass interference that aren't. And then, by the way, that's actually
Well, I
one
ain't
of
got there yet.
yeah. One of the things that is really difficult, it's probably one of the most difficult plays to call, and that's of course my world, because I'm always both on Friday and Saturday night 20 yards downfield looking for that specific play. But there are things we can look at. So for a defender, was he actually playing the ball, or was he in chase mode? Was he looking at the receiver trying to see, based on what the receiver was, his body language was the ball coming, and when the ball's going to get there. So that kid is not going to get much slack from me. If he's not playing the ball, he gets no slack. And he makes early contact. He just gave them a 15-yard play. So if he's actually playing the ball, and they get their feet tangled up because both of them were looking at the ball, that's one of those things that just looks awful. But it's not. It's nothing. It's that both kids going for the ball, and there's nothing there. You got a question right here?
Yeah, let's say that you have a good backfield and they do a fake, and defense tackles the faker, and the official blows a whistle with the ball carrier standing in the end zone with the football.
Yeah. So there are only two types of officials: one that have blown an inadvertent whistle, and those that are going to. And there are a set of rules that cover that. And that it's either a do-over or they get to. So inadvertent. Go ahead. Did you have more? I cut you off.
Yeah, well, we ran that play one time, and before we ran it the second time, we went up to Coach Little, for official Jack Little. We said, Jack, we're going to run that play again. And so then we made the touchdown.
One of the iconic officials in this area is a guy by the name of Tom Ransom. And if you've not met him, he's just a fantastic guy. He's retired from pretty much, he still does some supervising and some evaluating. He was a longtime Big Ten official on the field, then again, a longtime replay official from Lebanon. His family had Kramer Lumber. And poor Tom, the one thing he's probably going to remember is the one time, hopefully there are none in here, but the one time for IU fans that they had a chance to beat Michigan. IU had the ball in the end zone, and Tom had blown an inadvertent whistle because he had been faked out. But there are rules that cover that, and there are a couple things we can do.
We need to call end of game here.
All right, one more.
One more quick question.
Dr. Wilcox.
I had a question. If two teams, opposing teams, one team has a 5-yard penalty, the other a 15-yard, and they say they don't call, it seems to me that that's an unequal call.
Yeah, you're right. Some things just don't make sense. That's the dad in me, by the way, answering that. But so,
Let's
thank
give
you.
Max a round of applause. A little bit of a notepad, and there's some flags. We see Max uses those pretty heavily on his rule book as he studies, so you can throw a lot of flags at whichever book you're having at the time. But I think we all appreciate the fact that officials have a big job to do, and you all do your best and you prepare well to do that job in a good fashion. That's right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's give another round of applause. Thank you. That may be the first time in recorded history that an official got a round of applause. Right? I'm going to hand the back to Diane.
Well, somebody's always happy. The crowd's always happy.
Okay.
All right, thank you so